all right? Okay, اختلاف العلماء. Where does the disagreement from amongst the scholars, from the ulama, where does it come from? Let's take a look at this in some detail, inshallah. Look, بدايته, where did it start? بدايته, it started في زمن الصحابة, in the time of the Sahaba رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. Right? In the time of even the Prophet ﷺ, it started. It's not something new. We've looked at this. I'm going to give you some specific case scenarios and examples of how these disagreements come about. The asbabul khilaf, asbab means the reasons. What are the reasons where a disagreement might come? So as you can see the way I've done this chart, it will either be thubutul dalil or fahmul dalil. Thubutul dalil means the establishment of proof. Thubutul dalil means the establishment of proof. So somebody might disagree on the establishment of proof, and I'm going to give examples because that's what you guys were asking for. And then fahmud dalil, it's not about the proof, it's about understanding the proof. So everybody accepts that this is, for example, thubutul dalil. I'll give you a basic example before we go into specific case scenarios. Imagine I say something is wajib. Very simple, witr. According to the Hanafi school of thought, what level does witr hold? Salatul witr or witr, what level? Wajib. And according to A'immatul Thalatha means the three Imams, other than Imam Abu Hanifa, meaning Shafi'iyya, Malikiyya, Hanabila. What do they say? Sunnah mu'akkada or Sunnah. Okay? Over here, the disagreement is in thubutul dalil, establishing the proof. And if one group says that it's wajib and one group says it's Sunnah, then the disagreement has come because it's in establishing the proof. One is saying, I don't accept the proof as being wajib. One is saying, I don't accept it as being sunnah, I accept it as being wajib. Other way around. It's not about fahmud dalil. Fahmud dalil means understanding of that proof. So if I say to you guys, that every single day you have to do umrah. What does umrah mean? One person might say umrah means this, one person might say umrah means this. So that's understanding of the dalil. Now we'll give specific examples so you can understand. So let's start with thubutul dalil. In thubutul dalil, there's different things that might happen. So number one, for example, adamu bulugh dalil. The dalil just did not reach. The dalil, the evidence, just did not reach the companions, or it did not reach the tabi'un, or it did not reach the specific faqih, the fuqaha. Okay? Now, when it comes to dalil, again, for example, the people of Medina and Kufa, let's understand the difference. Al-farqu bayn al-Madinati wal-Kufa. Understand, where was the Prophet ﷺ when he passed away? In Medina Munawwara. Therefore, where were the majority of the Sahaba? So all of the knowledge was where? The people who moved to Kufa, would they have had more knowledge or less knowledge than the people of Medina? It makes sense, right? At that point, the center of learning and education was in Medina Munawwara. And like I said, in Medina Munawwara, you had the likes of Umar radiallahu anhu, Aisha radiallahu anha, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Umar. Who else? So the names that you've written? Who else? Zayd ibn Thabit, who said that? Abdullah ibn Umar, who else? Umar and Aisha. Okay, so they're all here. Okay, in Kufa, which two companions had gone? Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, right? Agreed? So there were less companions, and even amongst the companions, to corroborate something. So let me give you an example. Where a dalil didn't reach, right? This is the mas'alatu warathatu jadda an Abi Bakr. In the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he's the Khalifa. A grandmother came to him. Jadda, that's the word Jadda in Arabic, Jadda. An elderly woman who was a grandmother, she came to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And she asked regarding her portion of inheritance from her grandson's estate. So imagine there's a grandmother, she has children, and those children have children. So a grandson has died. So she's come to Abu Bakr saying, do I get anything from my grandson who's passed away? So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, what did he reply? He said, no. Unfortunately, there's nothing for you. The words were, مَا لَكِ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى شَيْءٌ. There is nothing for you from the book of Allah, from the Quran. وَمَا عَلِمْتُ لَكِ فِي سُنَّةِ نَبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا. And I don't know of any hadith where the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, you would get something. فَارْجِعِي حَتَّى أَسْأَلَ النَّاسِ. I want you to leave me for a little while. I'm going to ask the people. Who's the people? The other Sahaba. He's going to ask the other Sahaba. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu went and asked the Sahaba. So Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu, he comes forward and he says, حضرت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعطاها السدس. I was present by the Prophet ﷺ when a similar scenario took place. A grandson passed away and the grandmother was given 1/6. So out of his whole estate, what is left behind, let's say he leaves behind, 200 pounds, a sixth was given to the grandmother. You understand? So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu then said, هل معك غيرك? Is there anybody else alongside you who can corroborate this hadith that you've heard this from the Prophet ﷺ? So Muhammad ibn Salama radiallahu anhu stood up and he repeated what Mughira had said. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu then gave this fatwa. What are we saying? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu at first said what? There's nothing for you. Then he went and asked the other Sahaba, and then he found that there is something for her from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. She'll get a sixth. So the first reason why ikhtilaf or khilaf would take place, disagreement amongst Sahaba, would be عدم بلوغ الدليل. The evidence hasn't reached that companion. Does that make sense? So that's the first reason, that the thubut al-dalil, in terms of establishing the proof, it might just not have reached them. Go on. So actually, to be fair, he didn't say no. What the exact words that he said was, from the مَا لَكَ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى شَيْءٌ. Look, Abu Bakr knew the Quran off by heart, right? So he said very explicitly, there is nothing for you from the book of Allah. But when he came to the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah, he says, وَمَا عَلِمْتُ لَكِ فِي شَيْءٍ. I don't know of anything for you in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Me personally. But even then, he didn't give the ruling. He said, فَارْجِعِي. Return back to me later. حَتَّى أَسْأَلَ النَّاسِ. Let me ask the people first. You see, so he knew the Quran well. And he knew that the Quran is fixed. This is it. So there is nothing for you from the Quran. I can tell you that. But give me a bit of time. But regarding the Sunnah, وَمَا عَلِمْتُ, I don't know of anything. And this is why, if somebody will ask me, is this verse in the Quran? I'll just do a quick search. As a Hafid, you'll say yes. But even senior scholars of Hadith, if you ask them, is this an authentic Hadith? They'll either say, get it for me in Arabic, or they'll say, I haven't come across it. They're fighting the urge to say it doesn't exist. Because they know certain wordings in hadith sometimes fabrication or there's some issue with it. Just you can tell after having enough experience reading the ahadith and going through the ahadith, you know that this wouldn't have been a hadith. Just the wording, the way it's thinking. For example, if it's something like crazy stuff, like people used to send this back in the days, like when you had emails and this and that, people would send, or they'd say, and the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever forwards this will be with me in Jannah. Like, what? Where'd you get that from? Like, do you understand? So things like this, you just know that. But the scholars will say, as far as I know, I have not come across it. And this is why the default in a hadith isn't to narrate it. Don't just narrate a hadith. You have to authenticate it, then you narrate it. Or if you know it's weak, narrate it, but tell the people it's weak. Or if it's fabricated, narrate it to people and educate them that this is fabricated, don't use this. You understand? So we'll look at that when we look at the principles of using hadith. There are reasons you might want to narrate weak hadith to explain to somebody it's weak or something like that, or it's used for other reasons, etc. We'll look at that. And the second reasoning I've given, another scenario I've given, Mas'alatu ta'un and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Look, Umar radiallahu anhu was traveling to the Levant. And as he was going there, the Levant, or kind of Sham, had been hit by a plague. It had been hit by a plague, ta'un. Umar radiallahu anhu then sat with the Sahaba who were traveling with him. He consulted them. They're from the Muhajirin, from the Ansar, and he asked them that should a person go to a city where a plague has affected that city. So, and he didn't know. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, who, the conclusion came that we're going to go. So ignore the Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. The conclusion came that yes, we should go. None of the Sahaba said anything, no problem. So they started going to the Levant. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, who at the time of this consultation was busy, he came And he said, Inna indi fi hadha ilm. I actually have some knowledge regarding this. He says, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا سمعتم به بأرض. If you hear about a plague being in a certain land, فلا تقدموا عليه. Do not enter that land. Do not approach that land. وإذا وقع بأرض وأنتم بها. And if the plague comes to a land that you are in, the virus comes to a land that you are in, فلا تخرجوا فرارا منه. Don't flee from it. Don't leave this land. He said, Alhamdulillah, and he turned away. He turned back to Medina Munawwara. You see how Adamu Thubuti Dalil, he hadn't come across this narration, and one of the companions, very well trusted companion, Abu Salama, comes forward and he says, Abu Salama, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf comes forward and he says, I have knowledge regarding this. And so Umar radiallahu anhu takes this. Do you understand? So that's the first scenario of where there might be disagreements amongst the Sahaba, where a dalil didn't reach them, and based off their decision. So basically, look, imagine now you're amongst the Sahaba, Umar radiallahu anhu, you've called the Sahaba and they say, we don't know anything about this. What are you going to do then? You then have to do qiyas. So the Sahaba will have sat down, they said, well, Allah is the one who's created the plague, so we're going to go. So Umar radiallahu anhu and the companions said, we're going to go. But then when they heard an authentic narration of the Prophet ﷺ coming from Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, they said, hey, in that case, khalas, done. We're going to go back to our city. We're not going to travel out of our city. Khalas, that's it. So if the dalil hasn't reached, that's reason number one. Question?
That example, their life was very much led by basic common sense examples, led by what most of the people thought. Your common sense would say, don't remember the play. But then there were even stuff like that.
It wasn't that. It was the fact that when you have the belief that Allah is the one who gives illness, and you have the belief that Allah is the one that gives illness, and of course the reasons we're going would have been pertinent, then in that case it wasn't so much the common sense thing. It was more a case of, to be honest, like we say common sense, but even now we know when we had a pandemic in the 21st century, the logical thing to do was, whether you believed it or not, if you just close the borders, sit tight for literally like a month, done. You understand? That's it. And then there's physically no way of spreading. That's what happened in New Zealand and places like that, right? That's what they shut it down. They had 0 cases pretty much for a long time. But we know how did people, like you're saying, common sense things, something like oh. Well, I mean, you tell me, right? When it was in its peak, and there's still people like clubbing, and there's still all of these things, and the common sense thing is not to go there. People were still going. After it come out, people are going to all these kind of marches and riots and this and that and all of these things. So I'm saying it seems like a common sense thing, but in that moment, people will do anything. Like, if I said to you there's a plague, you might say I'm not going to go. But there's no guarantee everybody else will go. So the Prophet ﷺ's teachings were universal. They were for everybody. The Sahaba would have but their reason for going would have been pertinent. That's why they would have even had that conversation that should we go or should we not go. That makes sense? Go on. In the Prophet ﷺ said, a prophet before this? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I know Ayyub alayhi salam's illness, which was quite, to be honest, I think I've done a video on this on YouTube on social distancing. It's like a 4-minute video, 5-minute video. I have a pandemic series, which I started. I didn't get to finish it. But a lot of these things I've discussed in there from a hadith perspective, but it was a very academic approach I took to it. So that one will be like very technical. That one will be very technical. Like, I'm talking English-wise. The English is a bit more high level. But take a look at that. It might be in there. I don't think I did mention that, like specific, but social distancing and things like that from the hadith and examples like that. Yeah. Okay. The second example of Adam, the second example of establishing the dalil. So first one, the dalil didn't reach you. Number 2, عدم ثبوت الدليل. عدم ثبوت الدليل. That the dalil isn't to the standard for you to accept it. The dalil isn't to a standard for you to accept it. So it's come to you. But for example, another dalil is even stronger. Another dalil has come, another piece of evidence has come, which you prefer. So for example, one companion takes this evidence, and another companion will take another evidence. And he is saying, pay attention, I'll actually give you a specific scenario of this. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, in his Muwatta, has mentioned a hadith. The al-mutabayyi'ani, when two people are doing business, كل واحد منهما بالخيار, every single one of them, both of these people doing business, they have a choice. They have a choice. ما لم يتفرقا, so long as that transaction doesn't finish. What does this mean? If I say to Khidr, I'll buy this off you, and he says, I'll sell it to you, and we are in this transaction stage where I haven't agreed, at any point I can walk off. Agreed? And if I walk off, it's cancelled. It's cancelled. So long as you're in the same gathering, so long as you're in the same majlis. Now actually, scholars actually have a discussion here. What does it mean by so long as they don't separate? Does that mean the speech? Meaning some scholars say that if you are talking about you're talking about this transaction, the transaction, then you now start talking about something else, like, oh yeah, did you watch this football game? Yeah, this was a score and this and that. Now he can't suddenly say, yes, I want to do the transaction, done deal. You have to restart that. Do you still want to sell it or not? Other scholars say, no, it's not about the qawl, it's about the fi'l. So long as you're sat there, no matter what you talk about, you can come back and say, by the way, yeah, go on and do it. Let's do it. So they say that you have to separate physically for it to cancel. So Imam Malik, this is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. فقد قال مالك بعد رواية الحديث. Imam Malik narrates this hadith in his Muwatta. After narrating it, he writes, ليس لهذا عندنا حد معروف ولا أمر معمول به فيه. This is not something we practice upon. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this is not something, ولا أمر معمول به. I don't practice upon this. ليس لهذا عندنا حد معروف. According to us, it doesn't fit our principles. And because obviously there's another hadith or something like that, it'll be very clear. Right? So the dalil has reached him, but it's عدم ثبوت الدليل. It hasn't reached a level, it hasn't reached a standard for which he will take it as evidence. It might be because another hadith has come, it might be because of this. So now listen to this. فَقَدْ سَأَلَهُ رَجُلٌ. There was a person in the time of Imam Malik who came to him, and he said to him, لِمَا رَوَيْتَ حَدِيثَ الْبَيِّعَانِ بِالْخِيَارِ. Why did you narrate in your Muwatta, the book, this hadith that the al-bayyi'ani bil-khiyar, the two people making a business deal, they have the choice? Why did you mention it fil Muwatta? وَلَمْ تَعْمَلْ بِهِ, and you didn't practice upon it? How can you narrate a hadith and not practice upon it? Imam Malik, if you approached him in an aggressive way, he would respond in just an aggressive way. Imam Malik responded that لِيَعْلَمَ الْجَاهِلْ مِثْلُكَ أَنِّي عَلَى عِلْمٍ تَرَكْتُهُ. To let the ignorant person like you know that there is certain ahadith that we do have, but we didn't practice upon them. إِنِّي عَلَى عِلْمٍ, I am upon certain bits of knowledge, certain narrations, تَرَكْتُهُ, but I left them. And if it was because I didn't know it, why is it in my Muwatta? Was Imam Malik somebody who wouldn't take a hadith? Imam Malik was actually somebody who was known by Imam Shafi'i and other scholars that if Imam Malik authenticates a hadith, we take it. And as soon as Imam Malik had a doubt in a hadith because of some sort of issue, he would instantly reject it. Not doubt like, oh, I don't feel like it's a hadith. With evidence, he felt like this chain of narration is because this, Imam Malik would leave it. So Imam Malik said, I have narrated it because the authenticity is there. It's a hadith. But we have other evidences, we have other proof, we have other reasons. We have seen from the practices of the people of Medina, the Sahaba, doing differently. Therefore, this was probably an early narration to avoid disagreements and to set the principles of business. And then later on, the Prophet ﷺ caused concession, etc. Whatever the case, Imam Malik said, لِيَعْلَمَ الْجَاهِلْ مِثْلُكَ, so that the ignorant person like you can know, أَنِّي عَلَى عِلْمٍ, I have certain knowledge, تَرَكْتُ, which I have left. This thought of if it's in a hadith, you take it, wasn't even the opinion of somebody like Imam Malik, who's in Medina Munawwara, who took from like leading Sahaba of the time. Because they understood that it's not just because it's in a hadith, it has to be, it has to be, when was this hadith narrated? What's the circumstances of this hadith? And what does this hadith actually mean? Somebody else came to him and said, Ya Aba Abdullah, O Abu Abdullah, هل عرفت حديث البيعان بالخيار? He gave a fatwa once regarding this ruling. That, البيعان بالخيار, you don't, it doesn't occur as the hadith says. So somebody came to him, somebody said to him, do you not know about the hadith البيعان بالخيار? How can you give this fatwa? So Malik said, Naam, I knew about this hadith. وأنت تلعب مع الصبيان في البقيع, when you were a kid playing in the graveyard of Baqi, Jannatul Baqi. He's saying, do you not know of this hadith? And Malik said, I knew of this hadith when you were a kid playing in Jannatul Baqi. So these are the kind of scholars that we have. Malik rahmatullah made it very clear. Of course I knew this hadith. You were a little kid playing in the garden of Jannatul Baqi and in the graveyards of Jannatul Baqi. I already knew about this hadith. But there's other reasons that sometimes you'll come across a hadith and you're new to hadith studies and you'll be like, why does this person not follow this hadith? Therefore, he's rejecting this hadith. And people with superficial knowledge will say things like this. Oh, he doesn't have this hadith, or they don't know about this hadith, or it's in Bukhari, how can they reject this hadith? There's principles that are there. Imam Malik narrates the hadith in his own muwatta. It doesn't practice upon it because he knows that the hadith exists, but he also knows there's other evidences, etc. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So, Adamu thubuti dalil. The dalil does reach you. First reason, there might be disagreements. The dalil doesn't reach you. Second reason, the dalil does reach you, but you don't see that the evidence to be at a level where you take it as an evidence. Something else might be abrogating it. Something else might be qualifying it. There'll be another external reason that you don't adamu thubuti dalil. You don't take that dalil as being at the same level. And last reason why there might be disagreements, adamu hujjiyat dalil. Adamu hujjiyat dalil. The second one was the one that we did, was that you don't take that evidence or you find another evidence or something like that that contradicts it. You accept it's a hadith. Did Imam Malik accept it's a hadith? He did. But he doesn't see it as equal to another hadith that might exist, or the Amalu Ahlul Madinah, or something of that sort. This third one is Adamu Hujji. Question. Yeah, so that's why in your early time of studying, when you start studying, if you come across a hadith and there's a scholar who you respect and you trust, go to that scholar and say, I've come across this hadith. I know you're a person of the sunnah. Why is it that your practice is against the sunnah? Is it something that I've missed? Is it something that there's this hadith? Why don't you do it like this? And you learn like that. Yes, but some people, they'll learn the hadith and they'll say, therefore these guys are misguided. You want to learn. You're still at that learning stage. For the first 20, 30 years, however long, keep learning. You see something, go to the scholar and say, I saw this, correct me if I'm wrong. There's one of my teachers who complete disattachment to the world. But his trousers, I'd see it often coming below his ankles. Senior teacher of hadith. And it would irk me. I was like, I'm not perfect myself, but there's very explicit hadith on the trousers below the ankles. And I know he was extremely humble. So I'm thinking, why are his trousers below the ankles? So I went to him and I asked him forgive me, but and these are the teachers of hadith that, alhamdulillah, have been fortunate. I said, how come your trousers are always below your ankles? And he goes, what can I do? He goes, I keep pulling them up and they keep going down. He was one of those people, very disattached. And so you genuinely, then after I noticed, when he's sitting and he stands up to leave, you'll notice. But then I would observe as he's walking, every now and then he's walking with his books and just be pulling his trousers up. He was that kind of thing, a very thin kind of teacher and this and that. Obviously, he could have tied it, he could have found the way, but maybe these were just trousers that he had and he just wear them and thinking. So it was like, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was a similar scenario. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his trousers would keep slipping. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, and Abu Bakr, you're an exception. Because what does he mean by exception? First of all, Abu Bakr is somebody who has 0 ounce of pride. Second of all, he's trying to keep them up, they keep going down. So that is seen as a valid reason. And that probably, your respect probably increases for this person. And they're not even interested in they just keep pulling it up constantly and that kind of thing. But you understand, you go to them and say to them, I've come across this hadith. Is there a reason? And obviously, we're not talking about the sunnah, not even sunnah, something which is optional. We're not talking about something optional. We're talking about something which is like, anybody can miss a sunnah from time to time. Anybody can think it. We're talking about kind of blatant things. Like when I used to spend time with scholars, one of the things I would look at, and again, in a way you're judging, but in a way you want to see the sunnah in the scholars you're studying from, is do they put their right foot in the shoe before the left? This is something I would always look for in scholars that I would go to study from. And with confidence, I can say I have yet to find a scholar of hadith who I've studied from who doesn't put the right foot in first and the left foot. To the extent that I've seen scholars going into the toilet, and the way they do it is, if the slippers are in the toilet, there's a problem. Because if you put the right foot in the slipper first, then you've entered into the toilet with your right foot, and you're supposed to enter the toilet with the left foot. So what do you do? Because if you think about it, the slippers you put right on first and the left. But entering the toilet, you go left in first, then right. If the slippers are in the toilet, then what do you do? Toilets that we're talking about, cubicle type toilets. So what do you do? So these scholars, I've seen 2-3 scholars like this specifically. I don't spend time with scholars outside the toilets, but in those circumstances, I've seen these certain scholars, and they'll put their left foot in first, but on top of the slipper. So the left foot went in first. Then the right foot will come into the slipper, and then the left foot will go into the slipper. That level of ihtimam and attention to detail in terms of the sunnah. And this is kind of the thing that they'll have the evidences, they'll have the reasons, they'll have the proofs. But sometimes if you see something contradictory in your scholars, don't straight away start questioning. He's from back home, or he's like this, or he doesn't know, or they don't follow hadith, or he doesn't do this. Maybe ask, maybe inquire. Sometimes you'll go up to them in a way like, bro, how come you don't practice the hadith? What, do you think he's gonna value that kind of question and even give you a response? From their perspective, like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And this guy will go, yeah, I told him, I even asked him about the hadith, and he didn't have an answer for me. It's like he's looking at you like, I've studied this much and you're coming to me with one hadith. There's a way to approach it, because if you are a student of knowledge, you'll approach it in a proper manner. You understand? And so by all means, ask your scholars, ask your students if you see some practice which is in seeming opposition to the hadith. That's why early students of knowledge, early students of hadith, like Imam Malik saying, this guy came across this hadith. He saw Imam Malik give fatwa. He comes to him and says, you don't know this hadith? If I was Imam Malik, I would have gone even worse on him. Not just saying, I knew this hadith while you were in I would have said, have you even read the Muwatta? It's in the Muwatta. I will actually put it in the Muwatta. What do you mean I don't know this hadith? But Malik came out with a response which is suited to Malik, that I knew this hadith whilst you were playing as a child in the thingy cemetery. Ala kullin. So adamu hujjiyyati dalil, the third reason. So adamu hujjiyyati dalil means that the dalil has reached you. However, you don't take it as being a dalil. You don't take it as being a dalil. So you don't see it as a dalil at all. Look, Imam Malik took the last example as a dalil, but he said there is another dalil in place of it. Over here, I'm saying you don't even accept it as an evidence. Some Sahaba might accept it as evidence, some might not. I'll give you an example. There is a verse in the Quran. I'll read the verse, translate it. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. When you make promises, but it's a promise that's known as laghu. It's not it's not a legit promise, right? So you're saying, for example, you're playing football and you say, oh, this guy is hopeless. He can never score. And he's about to take a penalty. He says, Wallahi, he's not going to score, man. Come on, you know he's not going to score. Is he actually taking an oath like, Wallahi, he's not going to score? Or is it just something that came out? Wallahi, this guy is useless, man. He can't score. When you say something like that, Wallahi there, did you intend to make an oath with it? Or was it just your kind of being expressive? You're being expressive, right? So Allah says, La yu'akhidukum Allah, Allah will not hold you accountable. Billaghwi fi aymanikum. Those oaths, those promises that you take, which are laghu, which come out in like, in that moment, like, Allah, this guy is hopeless, man. Forget him. Don't even ask him. Like that kind of thing. Right? Walakin, however, Allah mentioned in the Quran, يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا عَقَّدْتُمُ الْأَيْمَانِ. Allah will hold you accountable for those oaths and promises that you take, عَقَّدْتُمُ الْأَيْمَانِ, which you mean sincerely. as a promise. If you say to somebody, I promise I'll give you £5 tomorrow, you mean it sincerely. You know, if he says, Allah is hopeless, man, I'll give you my whole house. No, you know exactly what he's saying. So Allah says, Allah will hold you accountable for the promises that you genuinely, sincerely mean. And what if you break that promise, the sincere promise? Allah says that then there's kafara. Kafara is how you make up for something that you messed up on. So if there's a kafara, you can make up for fasts that you've missed. There's kafara for the oath that you break. So say you made a promise that you weren't able to fulfill that promise. There is a kafara, there's a penalty. What's the penalty? إطعام عشرة مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم. Feeding 10 poor people. إطعام, feeding عشرة مساكين, 10 poor people. من أوسط, from not the highest level of quality, like, you know, the 5-star food, not even like a 1-star food, like just a roti, a dry piece of bread or something, but min awsati, from the average level of food that you ma tut'imuna ahlikum, that you feed your family. So whatever you, now notice that's amazing, subhanAllah. If you're rich, that's different. If you're poor, that's different. Whatever you're able to feed your family on a general basis, on a normal day-to-day basis, what then normal food, not like when you're going out to eat at a restaurant, or when you have nothing in the house, it's the end of the month, you don't have money to pay for food, so not that either. We're talking at like the midpoint. So min awsati ma tut'imuna ahlikum, that which you feed your families on a general basis, or kiswatuhum, or you give clothing to 10 poor people. And again, what type of clothing? The type of clothing that you generally wear. Tahir, you're going to be in trouble. But the type of clothing you generally wear, mashallah, Tahir is very. What's the most expensive pair of shoes? How much quickly? How much? £50 per shoe or £50 in total? Even that you're making up. Go on quickly. If you were to sell one of your shoes, how much would you get for it? Oh, you're lying for. How much is Abdurrahman's shoe? Nobody knows? Anyway, أو تحرير رقبة, or you free a slave. Or you free a slave. That's the kafara. Now, this is the main part. Pay attention. This is what I'm going to tell you. عدم حجية الدليل, where the evidence is just not accepted outright. فمن لم يجد, whoever cannot do this, you don't even have the money to feed 10 people, or you don't have the money to give clothing, or you don't have the money to free a slave. فمن لم يجد, whoever does not have this, فصيام ثلاثة أيام, fast for 3 days. Fast for 3 days. Okay. I can't remember the companion, either Ibn Abbas or Ibn Mas'ud, one of the companions. They have, now, before I don't go into this, there are, in the Quran, there are 7 qira'at. Have you heard of the 7 qira'at? The 7 variations of reading the Quran. All of them are from the Prophet ﷺ. All of them are legitimate ways of reading the Quran. You might have heard of certain names, Warsh, you might have heard of Nafi', you might have heard of different names that you'll have, Qalun, for example, different names that you have. Those are the 7 ways that you can read the Quran, which are authentic. And there's other ways, there's another 3 ways, but they are not what we call mutawatir. Remember we discussed mutawatir. Mutawatir is accepted by the scholars as evidence. The Quran is mutawatir. So the 7 variations are mutawatir Quran. There are 3 other variations, additional, which are known as ashara, 10, which means 7 plus 3. These 3, there is huge discussion among scholars. These are narrated from the Sahaba as well, but they are not mutawatir. So one of the companions in their recitation of this would say, فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ مُتَتَابِعَاتٍ. Ibn Mas'ud used to say 100%. Ibn Mas'ud used to say, فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَةِ أَيَّامٍ مُتَتَابِعَاتٍ. He used to have this addition, so مُتَتَابِعَاتٍ, which means consecutive. Now this is a qira'ah which is non-mutawatir, غير متواترة, meaning it's not in these 7 accepted qira'at. There are 3 others which were slightly variant, but they are not accepted as mutawatir. So you can't use them as evidence according to certain scholars. Listen to this. Imam Ahmad rahmatullah alayhi used to say that these three qira'at, which are non-mutawatir, they can be used as evidence. Ahmad, over here, Imam Ahmad used to say, use a different color, wujub al-tatabu'. It has to be consecutive 3 days. Why? Al-qira'atu ghayru mutawatiratin hujjatun indahu. The non-mutawatir qira'at are a hujjah, an evidence according to him. He used to say, Ibn Mas'ud used to say this, it is from the 3 non-mutawatir, I accept it. Imam Malik used to say, La yajib. Malik used to say, La yajib. No. It doesn't have to be 3 consecutive days. You can fast on a Monday, then a year later you can fast the other one. A year later you can fast the other one. 3 fasts, you've completed the penalty for your breaking the oath. But Imam Ahmad used to say, no. We take it. Why? Khilafaha. Imam Malik used to say, I will take the 7 qira'at as evidence. These 3 I will not take as evidence. Now, listen carefully. Imam Ahmad didn't just say, I take these 3 full stop. He used to say, I only take these 3 if there's no other evidence anywhere. Does that make sense? If there's no evidence from the Quran, there's no evidence from the Hadith, then from these 3, which are questionable variations, I'll take it from there. Ibn Mas'ud said it, I'll take it from Ibn Mas'ud. Does that make sense? So this is where we call Adamu Hujjiyati Dalil. There is a dalil. One side accepts it as a dalil. One side doesn't accept it as a dalil. And an example of this is, can you make as evidence the non-mutawatir variants of the Quran? The 7 mutawatir ones, everyone agrees you take. But the other 3, do we take or do we not take? Imam Ahmad rahmatullah alayhi used to say, 100%, I take it. When there's nothing else, I take it. So I know everybody agrees that we're going to fast 3 times. But does it have to be consecutive? Imam Ahmad used to say yes. Because Ibn Mas'ud says it in one of his 3 variations. He says yes, so therefore I'm going to take it. Imam Malik used to say, no, I will only accept the 7 variants. If it comes in Sunnah, if it comes in Ijma', if I can make the, I'll do it. But the other 3, we don't use it as a dalil. Question. He doesn't reject that it's a qira'ah. He has utility for it. For example, a person reading it, they might get a reward. For example, he might even use those qira'at for tadabbur. You're reading about the akhirah and you come across something which is different in the other 3. It won't be hugely different, like something that changes the, sharia, aqidah or something like that. But it's something which is like, it's something which is like a nice point to take away, like something small, like it'll be a variation of a word or something. He'll take it, he'll read it, he'll be like, subhanAllah, that's a nice point. He might explain a verse with this, but to use it for fiqh, application, evidence as part of the sharia, meaning this is what Allah and His Messenger want, Imam Malik was very strict. I've mentioned regarding Imam Malik, if a narration had some level of thing, he wouldn't take it. It is a big difference. Meaning consecutive and non-consecutive is a big difference. But again, it depends on which scholars you're following. So again, and by the way, we're not even discussing, I'm just showing you the ruling. We're not even discussing why Imam Ahmad, what his opinion was. So Imam Ahmad would say, look, this is the reason I take these 3. And then the response from Imam Malik, and then the response from Imam Ahmad, that's trying to understand that principle. Yes, I'm trying to show you the applications here. Yes, so why Imam Ahmad says that? That's a different discussion. Why Imam Malik takes the opinion? Different discussion. But our discussion right now is that this is an example where there is a single piece of evidence, but somebody will accept it and somebody won't. Yeah, it's not like somebody saying I don't take the hadith or somebody saying Quran. It's somebody saying that everybody agrees that these 3 variants are not the same as the Quran. So it's not like it's a major disagreement in the sense that it's not like one person saying I take the Quran verse and somebody saying I don't. Everybody agrees it's not the part of the Quran. This is like the non-mutawatir ones, like explanation of the Quran. Everybody will take from the 7 qira'at. The consecutive, it's not in those 7, it's in those 3. It's gone, battery's on. No, it's Ibn Mas'ud's opinion. Yeah, one opinion of Ibn Mas'ud of that mutatabi'at. متتابعات. Does that make sense? Go on. Any one of you ask.
So at the beginning, so there's three reasons why that you've said so far about why there's disagreements.
Okay.
At the beginning, you said establishment of proof, and then you said it's not about the proof, but the understanding of the proof. So that's not something you said.
One second. The first one is عدم بلوغ الدليل. The evidence doesn't reach.
Okay.
So what did I say for that one? The evidence doesn't reach?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one is
عدم ثبوت الدليل. The evidence. Oh, I see what you mean.
I just thought when you said it's not about the proof, but the understanding of the proof, I thought that might have been one.
No. عدم ثبوت الدليل means the evidence has come to you. You accept it that this is a dalil, but there is another piece of evidence that will trump this one, or something of that. So I accept it as a dalil, but I'm not establishing this evidence as sufficient enough to give me a ruling. You understand? So it's more about I accept it as a dalil, or rather I accept it as a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. I accept it's legitimate, authentic, but there's something else that's probably contradicting it. You understand? So you're not bringing it doesn't reach the standard of your accepting it because there's something else or something else. So عدم ثبوت الدليل would mean I accept it as a hadith, but there's something else that's causing this, an external factor. So for example, Imam Malik, he accepted it as a hadith, he put it in his muwatta, but he didn't take it because of other factors. The third one is that you are unwilling to accept this as an evidence from the get-go. عدم حجية الدليل. You're not willing to even say that this is an evidence that I'm going to take. It's not something I class as evidence. For example, think of British court. In the court, if you bring a witness, that's evidence. But a polygraph test, if you do a lie detector test, it's inadmissible in court. I don't know if you guys know that. Because polygraph tests are not 100%, it's inadmissible. You can use it like, just to kind of mention it as a side point and try and get some, but you can't bring it as evidence that I'm submitting this as evidence. You can just say it as a thingy and try and get the jury convinced, but you can't present it as an evidence. That's why, so from the polygraph test, it's عدم حجية الدليل. We don't even take it as an evidence. Don't even present it. Do you understand? We're unwilling to accept it because we don't take it. It's 99% or something like that. But the other one, عدم ثبوت الدليل, is like, for example, somebody presents an evidence in court, which is admissible. You accept it. It's valid evidence. But then you say, but then I have evidence to prove on camera that he wasn't there. So no problem. The witness might not be lying. They might feel like they saw somebody. That's legit evidence. But we have camera evidence that proves otherwise. Therefore, we, as much as we can accept it as evidence, and it will go into the court and it will go into the files and everything, and we'll say, correct, that's a form of evidence, but we have something that refuses that. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does that example give something? Okay. Yeah, go on.
So that way of recitation that must be seen as misinterpretation by Malik. That's why we take it.
Yeah, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi will say that his principles I disagree with, and they'll debate about those principles. And if they don't come to anything, they'll walk away and they'll hug each other and we'll walk off. But he'll accept that I understand where he's coming from. It won't be like an Iman, non-Muslim matter. It's a matter of you're taking this as evidence. These are your reasons. I really think you shouldn't. I think that's completely wrong. You shouldn't take that as evidence because of these reasons. He's saying, no, but I'm taking it because of these reasons. But he's saying, yeah, but I just don't take that as an evidence.
In that specific example, would everyone that used Zachariah had that same understanding of that, or just one individual that might have misunderstood?
No, there's other scholars who took this opinion as well. So the principle really is this. Everybody accepts you take Quran verses which are mutawatir, the 7 variants, as evidence. Question: do we accept the other 3 variants as evidence or not? This list of scholars will say yes. This list of scholars will say no. There's a good number of scholars on either side. They have their reasons and evidences, and they won't just say we'll take it and over the Quran, for example, the 7 variants. They'll say when there's nothing else and there's no other explanation, if Ibn Mas'ud has said mutatabi'at consecutively, where did he get that from? He must have heard it from he must have got it from somewhere. Although it's only Ibn Mas'ud saying it, that's why it's not mutawatir, it's not in the Quran. But he's probably explaining it from something he's seen or heard from the Prophet ﷺ. Therefore, we'll take it. So even then, they won't just say we'll take it over Quran and we'll take it over Sunnah. No, they'll have the order Quran, Hadith, but they will say that we'll take this if there's nothing else. Does it say anywhere in the Quran that it has to be scattered? These three fasts, you have to scatter them. Does it say that in the Quran anywhere? It doesn't. So if he says mutatabi'at, then Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal will say, if he's saying mutatabi'at, just take it consecutive. And Malik is saying, look, but I'm unwilling to take it. If the Quran says 3 fasts, I'll leave it like 3 fasts. Why? Where it does need to be consecutive, Allah has explicitly mentioned consecutive. So Imam Malik will say, Allah mentioned consecutive there. Why did Allah not mention it here? So Imam Ahmad will say that because the ruling can be applied from that, therefore you apply to this. Malik will say, no, if it's mentioned there, it's not mentioned here. I mean, there has to be, or here doesn't have to be. So it's just that disagreement. It's not a major disagreement. It's just, do we take this as evidence or not? Yes, sir. He would do 3 consecutive fasts. He wouldn't do. He would say, if you have made an oath and you've broken that oath, 3 consecutive fasts. Is that? If you took the opinion of Ibn Mas'ud and practiced upon that, Allah will forgive you. If you took the opinion of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal Imam Malik here, and you said it can be non-consecutive, Allah will forgive you. Do you understand? Because they both rooted in the evidence. Do not forget, the law is divine. It's from Allah. In the Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma. So you'd be like, how come he's doing one thing, he's doing it? And we'll look at this, the khilaf and kind of, all of this discussion. Somebody quickly check it. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو تحرير رقبة فمن لم يجد فصيام 3 أيام ذلك كفارة أيمانكم إذا حلفتم. If you want to type in Arabic, just write in إذا حلفتم. Or just write حلفتم. Ha, lam, fa, da, mim, حلفتم. Anything? Surah Ma'idah. Whereabouts? This specific verse, yeah? Read it for me. Yeah. So, are you doing hifz? Why not? Why? Tomorrow. Where? MashaAllah. So, Surah Ma'idah, number 9. Verse 9? Verse 89. Surah Ma'idah, verse 89. There you go. So, thubutu dalil are those 3 things. Meaning, the issue is with the dalil. You understand? The proof. So, for example, look. No. I'm now concluding that first bit. The disagreement can come from one of these 2. Pay attention. It could be thubutu dalil. It could be fahmu dalil. Pay attention. Thubutu dalil is the evidence itself. So number 1, the evidence itself doesn't reach you. Number 2, the evidence reaches you. But there's another piece of evidence, so you say, I have an issue with this evidence. And the third one is the evidence reaches you, but you don't even accept it as evidence. All of those problems were with the what? The evidence itself establishing it. But the other disagreement, which is known as fahmud dalil, is understanding the evidence. In this scenario, none of the other 3 matter. That means, for example, the evidence has reached me. I accept it. Everybody accepts it. But he understands it in one way, and she understands it in another way. Or he understands it in one way, and she understands it in another way. So there's 2 disagreements. So the disagreement here now is not thubutu dalil, meaning a problem with the evidence per se, but it's a problem with how you've understood that evidence. In the first one guy has evidence, other guy doesn't. Second one guy has evidence and he sees it as fine. Another guy has evidence where he says, no, I've got another evidence which is going to trump it. Fine. Third scenario that we had is this guy has evidence and he accepts it as evidence. This guy doesn't even accept it as evidence. But what if everybody accepts the evidence? Everybody says yes, but they understand it differently. That is split into 3 types as well. So thubutu dalil was 3 types. Fahmu dalil is of 3 types. Fahmu dalil, number 1. This is quite a technical one, boys and ladies. يعرض الدليل من عوارض الأدلة. I'll give you the scenario first, then I'll explain it. As a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this one here. إذا بلغ الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث. If water reaches an amount of قلتين. قلة was a certain type of jar in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oh, it's 52. We'll stop it there. We'll stop it there. Because I'll do these 3 together, inshallah. Yeah, makes sense? I'll do these 3 together, inshallah. It was a certain jar or type of measurement in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where they would used to place water into. Qullatayn, which is 2 qullas, used to come to 216 liters. There's a difference of opinion what the size of the jar was, but I've written there 216 liters was 2 qullatayn. So if you have water which is qullatayn, I'll just finish the translation of the hadith. Lam yahmil al-khabath, then it will not become impure. So if your water reaches the amount of 216 liters, it won't become impure. You understand? So I'll give you an example. If you're in the sea and you urinate in the sea, have you made the whole water of the ocean impure? No. So this is the hadith that they'll use, which is certain scholars will use. The hadith itself is if it reaches 216 liters, and even if you urinate in that water, it won't make it impure. Impure meaning for wudu and stuff like that. Obviously, there's conditions that the other scholars will put. You understand? Which we'll look at. Question?
You say 2 qullatayn is
216 liters in today's time. Big amount. Huh? There's different opinions. What have you found?
I said 190.
Where? Where? Where'd you get 190? Yeah, no. You might have sat in a fiqh class that said it. Ala hasab al-khilaf. The scholars differ on what size that jug was. Someone said 216. I've taken 190. Tahir just mentioned another opinion of 190. You'll get this. It's because they're unsure of the exact jug size. Do you understand? Each generation will have a slightly different. So it'll be like, so it's between, let's say then, it's a bit like it's around the 200 liters mark. You understand? It was like more of a kind of, think of it like a swimming pool type thing. Not a swimming pool, but something that, like a hot tub type thing. Think about it like that. You understand? Because in those days, you would go and get the water from the well. So sometimes, if the well was at a distance or something like that, you would come and put it inside like a place in the house where 3-4 houses would share that water. So you'd go, all of you would go, you'd get all of this water, put it in that place, cover it, and then you'd use it accordingly. Or you might have gone back home, in places back home, I don't know if any of you have seen it. How do they do wudu back home? Have you seen the masjids there? How? No. They have like a swimming pool. And everybody sits around the swimming pool. And you do wudu from that. So how it'll work is, imagine like your normal wudu khana that we have. but you'll have a swimming pool sat in front of you, and then everybody sat around the swimming pool. You pick the water from that swimming pool, you do wudu, but it doesn't fall back into the swimming pool, it falls into the drain kind of thing. So you reach over from that swimming pool kind of thing. The hawd is what they call it, hawawda. They pick it up from there, and then you do it. So that kind of thing, back in the days, used to make it qullatain. So when we went to India and we saw this for the first time, we were like shocked. So, and we were like, oh, it's so dirty, like you're doing wudu where everyone else is doing. But you get used to it because the water isn't touched. And at night we went swimming inside of it. So I remember I had my cardigan on, my woolly hat, everything. Went in the water and was just swimming. We thought it was empty. And then one of the students, it was a madrasa type thing. And we were just there for like 2 days. One of the students came out the toilet and we were just like, oh no. So we just quietly like walked off dripping. So yeah, so they have like a howl. Huh? Yeah, like a huge, like a pond type. Yeah. Oh no, not swims and bathes in. Just for wudu. But we just dived in because, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll discuss that. But that's how they used to do it. Like you'll probably easily find an image of it on Google. Or let me just type in wudu pond and see what comes up in images.
So this something specifically made, not natural part of.
Yeah, it's made. So for example, share screen 1 second. Something like this. So you'll have a 1 second. So something like this. It's like a huge pond, like a swimming pool type of thing. And then you'll have like a drainage here, as you can see over here. And then you'll pick the water up from there. You'll do your wudu and it'll fall into the drainage and it'll go. And so you just keep taking water from there. Obviously, how can you not be tempted to go for a swim in that, you know? So it's like that. Like now some of them, a bit more recent, they'll have it like this. So they'll have this whole system, this whole thing, but they'll have just added sinks in recently or something like that. So can you see the taps? They've added taps in. But as you can see, like that guy, I don't think he's doing it with the tap bit. So these are taps for people who want taps. Huh? Yeah. No, I don't think his feet aren't in. They won't do that. They're not that thing. Yeah, of course, like I said to you, it's tempting to dive in it. But basically like that. And so they'll do wudu like that. And so that how that discussion comes in of qullatain. Look, this is the exact same one, as you can see. So this section, they'll do wudu, but they won't stick their, they'll just stick their hands in, but the drainage will collect it. And over here, you've got the actual tap. So I think only one side has taps, probably for water or whatever, to drink. But some people will do wudu. And then this is like the hawd. No. It's fresh water, it keeps coming. But it's just how they've always done it because of the ease. I don't know. Have you seen that in Somaliland, Somalia, anywhere? No. They have like a little tap inside, which basically is like a swimming pool type thing. It keeps filling up. But like, I don't know. Actually, no. I actually think they fill it up with like with a hose or with an actual thingy. It's just because like for a tap, you have to go through the hassle of, you know, maintaining the taps, and that's cost. And then you have to get like a pump which pumps that water and all of these kind of things. So if you just have to worry about one tap, then you don't have all of these issues to worry about. Please can you send the voice message for the qada? Okay, you know what, I'll do that inshallah. They have a pond, it's worse in Bangladesh. Okay, Muzaffar is saying it's worse in Bangladesh. So yeah, so maybe this kind of color you'll see. And again, like I don't know where this is ablution pond. Huh? Yeah, but you know, it's
Public, I thought it was like that.
you're on about this one where there's showering thingy, this one over here, there's just all showering. Or you're gonna find somewhere where people are showering inside.
No, it's like every village has like a public kind of fun.
Yeah, but we don't want to see that. We don't want to see everybody showering and stuff. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, inshallah. And then we'll continue, inshallah, tomorrow. So again, this qullatain mas'ala will make sense here, where you would have like a big amount of water in this section. So 200 liters, it doesn't sound so surprising. What if, for example, an animal was to go past and some urine was to fall into this water? Would it make it impure? Would it not? These things. So they accept the evidence. You'll see how one group will understand it this way, one group will understand it that way. We'll look at that question.
The biggest problem I'm having with notes at the moment is when you come when you're saying hadith, and then I miss a part of it, and then I just don't write any of it.
So just write the English of the hadith.
I'm worried that I'm gonna just make
Yeah, so a lot of the time, what you can do is you can use something like sunnah.com, or you can just go and basically write whatever hadith, write it in English, hadith, and that up, copy it and Google it. And that same hadith will come up, see the references, you can even probably find the Arabic for it, all of these kind of things. Just copy and paste it into your notes. Listen, the note making will require you to do some stuff here and some stuff at home as well. But like the hadith, for example, if you're fast at transliteration, type it in English, or don't. I would just write the English hadith itself, the translation, and you'll easily be able to find it. Or you can just ask me, like, if you ever need to use it, you're looking for it through it, and you say, what's the proof for this? Where is this hadith from? I can then give you a reference easily.